Today's headlines: 14 children die due to starvation. Starvation hits Maqala. Demonstration in front of UN agency's building. Good evening, I'm Salam Berhana with today's news, and now for the details. 14 children confirmed dead due to starvation in the town of Wuqro, just 42 kilometers from the capital Maqala. 3.4% of children in Tigray are reported to be suffering from severe malnutrition, as 70% of breastfeeding mothers are suffering from some form of malnutrition. Meron Yamana has the details.
Bruchti Lagese is a mother of 3 months old Simon Yamane. She gave birth to him in a woods trying to escape from Ethiopian and Eritrean forces when they were raiding their village. Bruchti now says that Simon is on the verge of dying, suffering from hunger as the blockage of foods, medical supplies and other essential services continues.
He was affected by the hunger since the pregnancy period because when I was pregnant, I was running away to save my life. I couldn't eat, I couldn't rest. And even when I gave birth, I couldn't breastfeed him as well, as my breasts were dry and empty. And eventually, he got sick, so that's why I brought him here to the hospital.
Last week, the Bureau of Health announced that 3.4% of children in Tigray are suffering from malnutrition, a life-threatening condition caused due to lack of nutrition, while over 70% of breastfeeding and pregnant women are suffering from some form of malnutrition.
He has gotten a lot thinner, and even his bones are showing. And the thing is, even if you try to do part-time jobs to raise your kids, there are no jobs available. Banks are closed. Everything has turned to be a chaos. This is all because of Abi.
Simon is now receiving treatment at Wuqro General Hospital. The head nurse there, Sister Tsahainesh Gabrahewat, says that 14 infants have lost their lives due to starvation in Wuqro and its surroundings.
From June 21 onwards, 60 infants have come to our hospital seeking medical treatment. 9 of those children have already passed away. In the month of June and July alone, 8 infants died due to starvation. Another infant passed away yesterday. A total of 14 children have passed away due to starvation since the start of the conflict.
Over 100 trucks of food aid is required to move to Tigray on a daily basis to reach the 6.8 million people in need. Less than 2% has arrived so far, while medical supplies have not been allowed entry. Children like Simon and his mother, Bruchti, will continue to suffer in silence.
Crossing international borders, Eritrean forces entered Tigray to support Abiy Ahmed's government in the ongoing conflict. Eritrean forces have been accused of various war crimes and crimes against humanity. Just one of the many atrocities committed is the Soha massacre, where Eritrean soldiers brutally killed 22 civilians in December of 2020. Sablo Lamma has more on this.
On December 1st, 2020, just days after the Aksum and Mariam Dangalat massacres, Eritrean soldiers would commit another horrific crime in Soha, a small town in the eastern part of Tigray. Eritrean soldiers would come to kill 22 civilians brutally in Soha Warada. Families of the victims were horrified, but have found the will to tell their story. Agos is one of the victims' families. He lost 3 of his children. He says they were taken out of their homes, tied with a rope, and shot at point blank.
My wife begged them to leave my children alone. She asked them to leave, at least one of them, and one soldier threatened to kill her. They brought them here with other people and killed them. One of my sons, named Mikhail Hagos' body, is buried here. As you can see, I couldn't even bury them with the proper respect they deserve. And in this place, my son, that is 12th grader Marag Hagos, is buried. He was just 17 years old. See, here is a rope where they tied them with. And right over there is Ashenafi Hagos, my third son. His body is buried there.
The Soha massacre is just one of many yet to be reported. According to a study by an institute in Belgium, over 1,700 massacres have been committed in Tigray. And Eritrean soldiers are one of predominant actors, while unarmed young men had been one of the predominant victims.
I
have lost my two children, 30 years old Tesfu Zaru and 22 years old Birhana. They brought them here and killed them brutally. I am a blind man. My wife is bedridden, and they were the ones that took care of us.
The Eritrean soldiers killed my son. They took him away from me. My son is dead. This is a photo of him. His name is Zagabu Gabragzabir. He was 28 years old. That evening, I couldn't stay calm. I was extremely worried. But who would have thought I would lose him? After they killed him, I didn't stop crying or going to church for 20 days. He was the one that took care of me. He cared for me until the end of his life. And now, everything has become pointless because enemies took my son's life. In the mass killings that happened in Tigray, victims' families say that they were told not to try and bury their children or that they too would be killed.
They
took and killed them on December 1, and we buried them on December 20. 20 days later, we begged them to give us the bodies, but they didn't allow that.
My brothers led me here so I can bury my children. We were really scared that we would make sound and they would kill us as well. So we stayed silent and buried the bodies.
Today marks 92 days since the blockade on Tigray. The blockade includes 8 trucks carrying much-needed medical and food supplies. All forms of public services, as well as communication and banking services, remain blocked. The effects of the humanitarian blockade have now reached the capital, as supplies of all necessities run low. Ephraim Walde Yohannes has the details.
Ato Tolde Gabramedian is a father of 6 living in Maqala at Hawalti subcity. He was supporting his family working as a construction worker before the war broke out. But now almost all construction workers has been halted in the city and unable to feed his children. I was doing well as a construction worker before all of this. But it has been almost a year since I stopped working. There is nothing out there. No jobs, nothing. I go out to look for any employment, but I just sit there all day to find nothing. There is nothing to eat in my house. I begged for a day's worth of flour from my neighbors. Ata told his wife, Waziro Mehret Asafa, has also emphasized that she is forced to see her children starve to death due to the blockage of roads, banks, and social services by the federal government.
We're suffering here because of Abi and the anarchy that rested upon us. This used to be a flour container, but since I don't have any of that anymore, I'm using it for water. This one also used to be filled with injera, but as you can see, we have nothing.
Waziro Tarikuna is another victim of starvation. She says some of her children left the house to live in the streets because there was nothing to eat.
How was I to share one injera between them all? 2 of them left the house to live on the streets because they were hungry and had nothing to eat here. And the rest are here with me. Our neighbors are feeding me and my children, but I don't know for how much longer. I'm too ashamed to beg for food. I don't know what I would have done if it weren't for them.
The blockade of medical supplies and the destruction of health facilities by Ethiopian and Eritrean troops has brought about unspeakable horrors in Tigray's health sector. Tigrayans that are suffering from chronic diseases are in dire need of medical supplies, as patients in Save a Life for Life Rehabilitation Center for cardiac patients are running out of medication. Sabloark Lemma has more.
As the siege on Tigray continues to tighten, and medical supplies and other necessities such as food are coming to run out, those suffering from chronic illness find themselves running out of medication. In the Center for Cardiac Patients in Quihad General Hospital, Ma'ala, patients and staff are mortified at what could happen next.
We are not like the other people. We need to take our prescribed medications in order to survive. We used to have enough supplies, but we don't anymore.
Due to this genocidal act of the federal government, there are no medical supplies and people's lives are in danger.
If we stop taking our medications, our health condition will be very difficult. We won't die very quick, but we will be in so much pain or even get paralyzed.
Family planning and public health care expert Sisai Bahda describes the situation as such.
After the surgery of heart patients, we check their blood conditions in INR, International Normalization Ratio, in order to prescribe their medications, which are made in European standards, since this is a matter of life and death to the patients. However, we had our difficulties in bringing in doctors and importing medications for the past 10 months. So the more days pass, the more difficult their situation gets.
Save a Life for Life has been giving services to thousands across the region in need of medical care, including free heart surgery for over 300 patients. But the blockade on all essential medical supplies as well as public services has meant that they are able to provide very little care for their patients. Coordinator of the organization, Dasta Kabada, expresses how difficult the siege is.
We have provided heart surgery to 300 patients for free, but after the war broke out, it has become very difficult. All of the medications were imported. Now we couldn't even contact anyone from outside of Tigray because there are no banking and internet services. We used to appoint our patients on a weekly basis, but now we can't provide services, so we call them on monthly basis, and this is putting their lives in danger.
According to Tigray's Health Bureau, 84% of health facilities are completely destroyed and looted, resulting in a complete collapse of Tigray's health system.
Maqala University staff members conducted a demonstration on September 25, 2021, calling on the international community to act. According to the Disaster and Risk Management Office, there are 2.2 million internally displaced persons and 5.6 million people in urgent need of food aid and medication, in the absence of which millions are expected to perish. The man-made humanitarian crisis has been exacerbated due to a 3-month blockade of food aid and medical supplies. And now for an interview with an expert.
Stop the famine. Stop the famine. Stop the hate. Stop the hate. Stop the siege. Stop the siege. Stop the systematic blockage. Direct humanitarian flights now. Direct humanitarian flights now. Women cannot wait. Women cannot wait. Children cannot wait. Children cannot wait. Tigray cannot wait. Tigray cannot wait. Access to basic services now. Stop the siege.
Our guest today interview at Eider Comprehensive Specialized Hospital. Thank you for joining us, Abraha.
You're welcome.
So you were one of the protesters on Saturday calling for the international community to act. What led you to organize and participate in this protest?
I think the Magala University community is one of the keen observants of the atrocities that are occurring here, and also the harms that are now again surfacing. So the international community shall see these problems and then complete siege from every resources in a timely manner. In fact, it's late, but again, this is again shall not be too late to the others. So it is to make the problems be responded to survive the suffering children, mothers, and the general community.
What are the most important points raised during the demonstration?
Issues related to the malnutrition in children, compromising mothers, the economic jeopardies overall all Tigrayans are facing now have been among the issues, and particularly the UN and the international community have been addressed to be responsive to the problems being faced.
You're a pediatrician at Idar Hospital, currently treating children suffering from malnutrition. What has that experience been like, and how many children are you treating, and what condition are they in at the moment?
At this very moment, we today, for example, are treating 29 children with severe acute malnutrition that have been complicated. The non-complicated are basically to be sent to the community hospitals and health centers. So this is a number we have never faced since establishment of IDER. And we have also faced deaths in the last 3 months. And throughout the decade, we have never reported 4 deaths in a month. So this is the quarter where 4 deaths in a month has been reported. And the background, again, the care providers of these children also have lost the hope. They have nothing to feed going back home also. So this makes the current problem very unique, and the average admissions per month also has tripled since the average over the last 5 years this time. So everything has increased with coming to the counts or to the data. So it has been very painful to witness this.
Mekelle University staff, including your colleagues at Idar Hospital, have not received their salaries since June. Your salary was discontinued despite the fact that you're federal employees, and your hospital is running out of medical supplies. How have you been coping?
I think this, you raised these are the problems we are facing every day, and I think let me prioritize my clients, the patients in IDER, including children on whom I work often most of my time. We have now started to use expired date medicines because we are not bringing new. So we have epilepsy children who are receiving drugs that have expired 2 months ago. With intense discussion, professional discussion in the hospital to sustain life and reduce morbidity, thinking that this siege will live in a short period. And with shortage of medicines, we have the first generation. Generally, we have the first generation medications for a hospital base. Then we cannot ascend to second generation medications, but we are working in a referral hospital, so we come shortage of that. There were patients also dying of chronic medical illnesses, missing procedures, missing medications in all of the specialties in the hospital as a member of the faculty in the hospital. But particularly in children, again, we have run out of chemotherapeutics for blood cancers and other forms of malignancies in children, for example. So the problem goes widespread amongst our patients. The hospital staff, now transportation facilities are almost stopped, and I am again a mentor of postgraduate trainees. We are running it because the postgraduate trainees in the College of Medicine runs also hospital, so we don't stop it, and then we are running it. So probably one of the stories that may shock the world is even physicians under training, working longer hours, are fainting in the procedures after working for a couple of hours. They don't have adequate energy to finish the longer procedures or the emergency procedures on a number of patients sequentially. So this has never been our story has never been our story, despite economic limitations as a developing country. But this is what is going on. We have staff who have children with severe acute malnutrition. So what else can depict this? So the staff have manifested this manner. So I think the current siege, the current seriousness of the harm against we Tagaru in Tigray is a severe form of one. I have never thought of the world would deafen to such or give elephant ear to such compromise in this century.
So Tigrayans around the world have been protesting and voicing their concerns over the past 10 months. Some may say these cries have fallen on deaf ears. What do you say to the world that hasn't already been said?
To begin with, I would like to thank all Tagaru that have voiced for us here, and they have also immensely contributed for the hospitals to run, for each of us to function in this difficult time. They have supported us immensely throughout all the war period. So I would like to thank them first. Thank you so much. I think this tough time will pass and it will be narrated. And this will be a story of the surviving Tagaru. And then going back to the community, the international community, including the Secretary General of the UN, I would say the international community is so delaying and then seeing us passively dying. I know the stories related to, for example, Rwanda, and then Kofi Annan, after went off the office, he regretted he would have stopped the war. The world had the capacity to stop the war, and then the world witnessed a genocide. And the current disaster we are facing, I think Antonio Guterres will regret it as he leaves the office, unless he brings, and with his colleagues, brings tangible changes. And the international community, I feel, would be regretting this when the time passes. That's, I think, what I can say in this regard.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Abraha, for joining us. And
yeah, anytime, my pleasure.
That wraps up our news for the evening. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for an interview with Dr. Hagos Kudifai, head of the Bureau of Health, here with us on Direct Talk. Good night.